Hello, guys, and welcome back to Cryptic Humility. My name is Vanessa Hurley. I am your host and guide. This is episode 16. Last week, we did not post an episode because we were too busy celebrating Easter. I hope you guys had an amazing Easter if you do celebrate. I usually record the podcast on the weekend, and on Saturday, I had my partner's Easter with his family, and then my grandmother's house on Sunday, so I just didn't want to rush anything, and I also wanted to spend time with my family as one would on a holiday. And yeah, so we're going to pick back up on FinTech. I know last week we talked about what was FinTech. We also went into some FinTech companies. I'm just thinking I have so many things to tell you guys. I'm going to try to get this out before we start this episode. First is that I'm totally exhausted because I spent the weekend in New York City, not for anything business related, but one of my best friends is getting married, and I just got back. Today's Sunday. I just got back a couple hours ago. So we had a lot of fun to keep it professional. But in my time in New York, there were so many things that I realized that I want to talk about on the podcast. Just a lot of signs, if you will, in regards to things to talk about. I totally forgot that I went through a crypto scam and scheme my senior year of college that I didn't talk about yet on the podcast. I can't believe I haven't talked about it yet. But honestly, it's just because it was a pretty minor thing that happened, but a very big issue in the crypto world that needs to be talked about. I don't want to spoil it for you guys, but that's next episode. We're going to be talking about a massive scam and scheme that's going on in the crypto market that needs to be addressed. And also, we're going to be continuing our conversation with fintech technology and fintech technology. We're just gonna pretend I didn't say that because there are so many companies that are new into fintech that I think could genuinely better your life. Just by going through all these companies in these episodes, even I myself have learned new companies, new creations that can help me finance better. We're gonna go over some of them again today, and we're probably gonna carry it on, like I said, for next episode as well. And actually, while I was in New York as well, I have at least 3 new people who are interested in being guest speakers on the show. So we potentially could be hearing from a crypto lawyer soon, which I think would be very interesting. But in my time away from you guys, I have been working really hard to try to gather more feedback and more credible people that could potentially be on the show. And as I told you guys in the last episode, I was thinking about taking Cryptic Humility live into the streets of Boston. We are still going to be moving forward with that. We're planning that behind the scenes to get everything ready, and I'm very excited. I think it's going to be amazing. But that's coming in May 2025, so in a couple weeks. There's going to be no current news today. There's no current news in general that I want to touch upon that I think is very urgent. For now, I want to stick to the education and continue to talk about fintech. And let's get right into it because somebody had messaged me on one of my TikTok videos and they were talking to me about the SPX 6900. And I was thinking, yeah, that might be very interesting to talk about today on the podcast. And it connects to the S&P 500, which I know that this podcast isn't so much about stocks, but I think it's really good foundational information for you to know. And it will kind of teach you and see why there was such a spin-off for the SPX 6900. So without further ado, let's talk about all these concepts. Let's get into it. I hope you guys are having an amazing week. As I always say, let's do this. So, the S&P 500 was created in 1957 and it was created by a credit rating agency called Standard & Poor's. To simplify this and dumb this down in the easiest way possible so anybody could understand, the S&P 500 is essentially the best or top companies in the United States that make up a majority of our market that are pretty high in regards to market cap. So those 500 companies in the S&P 500 give us a good idea of how the American economy is going, how our stock market is going, and just how business in our country is operating and running. Are we doing well or are we doing poor? And these are all companies that are publicly traded. The S&P 500 is a float-weighted index, and basically what that means is that we are looking at the available shares that could be traded without any restrictions. Some of the biggest companies in the S&P 500 can be Microsoft, it could be Apple, it could be Amazon, it could be Tesla. But this isn't to say that out of the 500 companies, I just listed the top 4 that we just mentioned, It's not to say that they all own 1%. For example, Apple could own 1.36%, and then Tesla could own like 2%, and so forth and so on. That's not necessarily accurate. That's just me giving you guys an example to show that every company is not equal, but these are the top companies in the United States that are performing well, that are big enough to be publicly traded and give us an idea of how our economy is doing and how these large institutions that dominate the market in a lot of ways, how are they performing, and what does their outlook look like? And in that, we can also trade them, we can invest in them, and we can see prosperity in them. Next episode, we're going to be talking about mutual funds and ETFs as well. It either is going to be next episode or the episode after that, but that is how we'll get into talking about how you can get involved with the S&P 500, like if you wanted to invest in it, if you wanted to have it in your portfolio, or specific companies that are in it in your portfolio. How would you go about doing that? We will talk about that because ETFs are significant, especially for crypto. So that will be touched upon in a future episode. Feel free to subscribe. Make sure you don't miss that episode if you are curious. But the SPX 6900 is a meme coin that is a spin-off of S&P 500. Now, I had to do a lot of deep diving into this because Coinbase actually doesn't support SPX 6900, which is interesting to me. It's like any other cryptocurrency, and I'm not, there are cryptocurrencies that are not backed by supply and demand, like stable coins and stuff, but this meme coin specifically is backed by supply and demand. You can exchange it, you can do person-to-person network transfers with it. It's pretty much like any other cryptocurrency, but it is specifically a meme coin. And it's run off humor and sarcasm and in some sort of way rebellion against the traditional stock market, which I don't necessarily know is a good idea. But a lot of people have been asking me kind of about how the SPX 6900 runs. What is its stats? We're going to look into those, but this is not something that I recommend you invest in. And I know I say this all the time, but I am not a financial advisor. And the thing that's wrong, that's so wrong about meme coins is that meme coins truly do run off supply and demand. And more specifically, what I mean by that is that if the meme is in high demand, meaning it's popular, it's trending, it just came out, society finds it hilarious. Okay, now we've turned this into a coin. Now it's a meme coin. Like, let's invest into it and shoot all of our money into it and blah 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 blah. The problem, the many of problems with that is that eventually that demand is going to go down. Eventually, that meme coin is going to come and go, or that meme is going to come and go. And there's not going to be any solid backing, any solid value behind it that would drive it to continue in its price. Besides humor, besides rebellion, which aren't things that we can truly guarantee are of long-lasting value. And again, going back to my point about how Coinbase does not have this listed, it's very interesting to me because it goes to show that it's not necessarily the most popular meme coin that could have lasting value. Like, compared to Dogecoin, like Dogecoin, there's a lot of history behind Dogecoin. Elon Musk even potentially is a little bit behind Dogecoin. And we've seen Elon now in Doge, like the Department of Government Efficiency, which kind of aligns in a way with Dogecoin. Not necessarily, but you know what I'm trying to say. So Dogecoin could have significant value, but obviously even Dogecoin is just another meme coin that doesn't really hold any specific value. But again, I haven't looked too much into Dogecoin in a while, so I definitely will have to see what Dogecoin is up to if it's involved in anything significant. But just to draw the connection to the SPX 6900, it's like, it's just run off supply and demand. It's just run off humor and sarcasm. And of course, if you are trying to invest in the long term, if you are trying to make something substantial out of this, I would not recommend investing, honestly, in any meme coins. I have a little bit of money into Dogecoin, and that's simply because I just think Doge has a good backing. And it has like credible people behind it in a way, but I don't want to steer us off track. I just want to say that somebody asked me to cover this week, and of course your wish is my command, and I love my community and talking to you guys about this, but I really don't love talking about meme coins just because I think they're kind of a waste of time to talk about. And they're not like the big dogs like Ethereum, Bitcoin, Solana, Cardano, where I can see huge potential in the market, and not only the market but also society for these creations. You can trade the SPX 6900, since we were talking that it's not on Coinbase. You can trade it on some of Ethereum's D apps, and you can also trade it on Kraken, and I'm sure there are other Coinbase even listed it, but I'm sure there's a couple other sites that you can trade it. Obviously, I only trade on Coinbase. Coinbase to me is the most credible. They have the most integrity in regards to the crypto world. And also for them to not have these kind of pointless meme coins on there just further shows that Coinbase is serious about the cryptocurrencies that are traded. And truly every single coin that is on there could have some sort of value. All right, looking into some stats for fun on the SPX 6900. So in January of 2025, it had an all-time high of $1.74. It had a circulating supply of 931 million, which is actually 93% of the total supply. Now, what's interesting about this is it offers a lot of token burns. Oops, sorry guys, hang on. We know the drill. I always do that. I always forget to turn my computer off. It allows for a lot of token burns, and token burns are essentially when you have too much of a token. So like if the token has unlimited supply, or even if it doesn't have an unlimited supply every single year and it has like a cluster supply, for example, Ether every single year is 18 million. So if we're drawing a comparison, let's say that the SPX 6900 is having 20 million coins come out every single year. And that is actually increasing inflation and decreasing the price of the coin. So what they can do is it can essentially delete or burn some of the tokens completely off the blockchain, which will help increase the price and value of the meme coin. Again, I do not recommend this in regards to trading. I think that's cheating a little bit in a way to just like remove coins if there's too much of a surplus of coins, and that's creating such a decrease in value, and then all in all we're just seeing not that much of a use for the coin besides somewhat of a rebellion. And I'm not really sure why people would even rebel against the S&P 500. I think the S&P 500, it's obviously been around for so long, but it is a good resource to overall check out briefly how our economy and at least the stock market is doing. The current price for the SPX 6900 is sitting at 44 cents. So it might be a little too expensive to invest in right now, but in the future, I'm sure that we could sort something out with our portfolio to be able to take a look at it. But all jokes aside, I wanted to cover this because somebody had asked me to, but truly, I would not invest in meme coins. I don't think meme coins are worth your time. I think meme coins are very much involved in the get-rich-quick schemes, and if you are trying to get out of the get-rich-quick schemes and those rabbit holes that lead you to failure in the crypto market, then I would highly suggest you come to Cryptic Humility, you stay here, and we start talking about other coins as we've been doing, talking about FinTech creations and other things that can advance and protect and better your future. Let's regroup. Let's go into chapter 2. Let's talk about some of the FinTech companies that I think are worth talking about. So, this past week, I looked onto Forbes' list of 50 fintech companies that are cool and trending and that you should look into and that are popular and whatever. And I actually was looking into one that is called Aven. I think that's how you pronounce it. Aven is a fintech company that specializes in HELOC credit cards. Now, hate to tell you guys, but you know what time it is. We're going back to the bank. So when I worked at the bank, did you guys, yeah, you know, when I used to work at the bank, we sold HELOCs to people. And I hate to say that we sold HELOCs to people, but really we did. We tried to pitch HELOCs to people. And what HELOCs are, if you're new here, HELOCs are home equity lines of credit. So how this works is if you bought a house a while ago, you've made payments to your mortgage and you've paid off like half your house, you in some sort of way have equity on your house compared to what you bought it for and what you owe now. Somewhere in between there is equity for you to have. And what people can do with the bank, if you qualify, depending on your credit score and all these different factors, you can actually put a lien on your house. And I know a lot of people probably have heard that term. Maybe your parents have mentioned it to you, but putting a lien on my house, putting a lien on the house. Oh, yeah, they put a lien on their house. What a lien on your house is essentially like it is a HELOC. It is a home equity line of credit, and it's taking that equity that you have, which of course you have to have less. You have to owe less than what you bought the house for to have equity in it. I know that's probably very obvious to understand, but to make it clear, you can take that equity and you can actually kind of use it in a way as a loan. So the bank will allow you to use the equity that you have collected on your house as a loan. So why would this be a good idea? Number one is if you ever have a house and you want to do an addition, for example, you want to add on to your house, or you have a massive construction project and you want to do something cool to your house, like you want to add a sunroom or something. Just a random example. You might want to use a HELOC. Now, the whole thing with the HELOC is that it's a bit confusing because you have to go through the bank. If you want to pull from it, you have to go through the bank. You have to, there is online banking, but a lot of the process is done in person to person with a teller at the bank. What Aven is trying to do is it's trying to create HELOC credit cards. And HELOC credit cards are basically like being able to borrow against the loan like you would for a credit card. And then the only difference is with a HELOC, so the first 10 years, you only have to pay back interest. And then the second 10 years, because it's a 20-year loan or lien term, the second half, the second 10 years, you have to pay back interest plus what you borrowed. So the only difference between this company and the bank is that you can now do it with a credit card. And honestly, it's so much easier. There are a lot of risks with that, though, because the credit card is so easy to just swipe and borrow, swipe and borrow. And that 10-year period that you don't have to pay anything back can be very risky as well. But it is a good opportunity for you to invest in your home. Invest in your home, or you can use it for other things. Let's say you wanted to buy a car, you can potentially put a lien on your house to invest in that car and make payments back. Pretty much very similar to another personal loan, but there are a lot of advantages with HELOCs. The only disadvantage, though, and it's a pretty big disadvantage to miss here, so I'm glad I'm covering it, but if you put the lien on your house and let's say you spend $100,000 on this renovation for your house, and then you end up not being able to pay it back, you are risking your house being up for foreclosure. So you are risking losing your home. And obviously, we don't pitch HELOCs to people that are not good candidates for it. But if you are a good candidate for it, you have good credit, you don't have any other scary loans that you need to pay off, this would be a good opportunity for you. And now remember, we're going into FinTech, so we're doing finances more technologically based to make your life easier. And instead of doing HELOCs person to person with the bank, now you can do HELOCs. You can apply for one online through Aven, and also you can just swipe your card and be able to use your credit card as your HELOC. And I think that's pretty cool. I mean, you'd be surprised. A lot of people are interested into HELOCs, and there are interest rates on that. And I would have to double check. I'll post it in the video for you guys to show you exactly what the interest rates are looking like right now, especially with this company. But they usually, at least last year, were around like 6.5, and I know that that's pretty high. Typically, they should be around like 2 to 3%, but I know obviously we're not experiencing economic renaissance as we'd like to in this time. Hopefully that will change soon, as I keep saying on the show. But truly, usually the interest rate is like about 6.5 to 7%. So it's a little high right now, hoping it goes down, but HELOCs are a good option. And now they just made it a lot easier for people that want to invest or potentially need a loan or want to do construction on their house or need to purchase something big. And you can take that gamble on your own home. And now they're making it even easier, which, give or take, if that's good and bad, there are good things to it and bad things to it. But now they're making it even easier with credit cards to be able to use HELOCs and apply for HELOCs online and use your credit card for your HELOC lien. So Avon was founded in 2019 by former Square, which we covered Square last episode, and also former Facebook executives. And it received like $1 billion in funding. So it was very, very popular to try to advance the HELOC world to be more of a fintech creation. And it seems like they're succeeding with it. I think it's a really good idea, especially as myself working at the bank and watching people have to come in to take out money out of their HELOC, to just be able to do that via credit card and then just pay that off and have those term options is really favorable for a lot of people. To not have to pay back interest for, or I'm sorry, not have to pay back the base of a loan every single month for 10 years and just pay interest is a really good deal, as long as you are prepared for the next 10 years after that. Avon, I'm sorry, actually has a valuation right now of 1 billion. So in regards to funding, I will find out how much they funded for. I'm assuming it's got to be in close proximity, but they have 1 billion valuation, so 1 billion worth right now. Okay, let's talk about Alloy. Alloy is another fintech creation that I think is worthy to touch upon this week. So in our last episode, we were talking about cybersecurity, and we were mentioning that cybersecurity is a leading industry right now in regards to fintech creations. Because as we're evolving to trust more of our financial services, like online banking, all these things, to and HELOC, credit cards, and whatnot, as we're entrusting these to be more online, that also leads a lot of risk to fraud happening in regards to stealing your identity and just stealing funds and hacking systems that are electronically based. So what Alloy is trying to do is they're actually trying to help companies secure their identity crisis, meaning securing their identity risks in regards to confirming your identity. So for example, LinkedIn. On LinkedIn, sometimes you might have to submit your ID and then they get back to you in 24 hours to let you know what the process is. Are you legit or not? Are you who you say you are or not? Alloy is trying to help companies be able to manage identity risk so much easier. They basically offer a lot of financial products that help companies have the options of what they'd like to do in regards to securing identity for their consumers, for their customers, for businesses, and all employees, and all different kinds of things. So if you own a business, this could be something very interesting to look into, because not only do they do identity risk, but they also do just all sorts of kinds of fraud. They also go into compliance work, so keeping your employees up with compliance. Another really interesting thing that happened at the bank is that identity risk was a huge thing in regards to the customers, but we always just checked IDs. We had an ID on file. As soon as you pulled the customer up, their ID and all their information would show, of course. But at the bank, we also did a lot of compliance. So we were always obligated at least every 3 to 4 months to to be tested on all these compliance questions. So as new rules and regulations were being passed, we were required to be tested on those rules and regulations to make sure that we are complying and staying up to standard with the government, but also just the bank, what the bank was expecting out of us, which is really interesting. And a ton of companies do this, especially if you work for huge corporate companies. They might make you do compliance tests. They might make you do different kinds of quizzes and testing your knowledge, and even just like behavioral tests in regards to sexual harassment and all those kind of general things. So Alloy helps companies do all those things like fraud, identity risk, and compliance so much easier, so much more seamless. They also offer ongoing monitoring. So if you needed to monitor something over a long period of time, if you needed to monitor somebody's identity, or if there was like a short, brief time frame where you needed to monitor something, they offer services like that as well. Alloy was founded in 2015, so it's been running now for about 10 years. Again, this isn't like a super crazy fintech creation, but it is simply allowing businesses to do not only just finances, but also just regulatory things much, much easier. So instead of doing all these meetings for compliance and in person things, or maybe even like workbooks or paper things, now they have a whole system, like a whole assessment that you can set up and just send out to your employees seamlessly and have deadlines and tracking their progress in regards to if they are complying with your company's policies. And also, for all the things like let me give like online banking. I know we talk so much about banking on the show, but it's just such a good example. Like online banking and identity risk is such a huge thing, but they allow, and actually Face ID. Face ID is kind of a fintech creation in a way in regards to avoiding identity risk. Now, of course, it's not perfected, but Face ID, how many times have you logged into your bank account and used Face ID? And honestly, like I can't even tell you the last time I've like punched in my password for online banking. I usually just use my Face ID, and that's a form of identity protection, but also identity prevention, like identity risk prevention, I would say, and making sure that who you are is aligned with the account. And actually, that outside of even this company, outside of Alloy, your iPhone does that for everything. Once you log into your iPhone, if you need to if you need to purchase something, if with Apple Pay, you have to double click and either enter your password or show your Face ID. So this is all a form of identity risk prevention, and Alloy is just taking that a step further, and it's doing it for businesses now. All right, guys, I'm sorry in advance. This episode is going to be a little bit short this week, just with all the travel and Easter and just kind of all the chaos. I had like a half week. We left on Thursday, so it's just been crazy. I'm a little loopy right now because I haven't had good sleep in like 4 days. But we will pick up this next episode. As I said, we're gonna have a ton of guest speakers coming onto the show very shortly, so I appreciate you guys staying with me, and so much to come in the spring. We are prepping for so many things, and actually one of those things I wanted to mention, and I've mentioned before in the podcast before I let you guys go, is that BFED Foundation, the nonprofit that I run, we are starting the community garden this upcoming weekend on May 3rd. So I'm very excited. We have a lot to do, but we potentially want to grow the podcast to a point where some of our proceeds and revenue that we get from the podcast, and hopefully eventually the business venture, can be allocated to the nonprofit and help fight food insecurity in Massachusetts, which is what we do. We have a community garden. We're growing a ton of plants this year, like artichokes, cucumber, watermelon, what else? Cucumbers. Did I already say that? I'll put a whole list on the video for you guys to see what we're gonna grow, but your support is needed, and in that we have all that prepping for this weekend too. So it's just been kind of a wishy-washy week, but of course we went over a couple fintech companies. We went over a meme coin that do with it what you will. But next week we will be going into more fintech companies, and we will be diving into a massive Bitcoin scam that needs to be addressed. And also next week, I promise that we will cover some relevant news for you guys. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a great week, and we will pick back up with more information next week. And of course, feel free to check out any social media, because I post a lot of just educational stuff on there too. LinkedIn, TikTok, YouTube, etc. And I will see you guys next Monday on Cryptic Humility. Thank you.